Hey everyone, how's it going? It is 1 p.m. We just got the closing bell for January 2nd, and it was a pretty volatile day. It was pretty interesting action. So let's take a look and see what happened. In the SPY, we did get that downward bias that we were talking about in the morning, but for the most part, we chopped sideways. You can see that we did get quite a bit of range, but we ended up pretty close to where we opened, and this is just mostly sideways movement. You see the same thing in the Dow Jones right here. The major difference being that the Dow Jones is actually very near the close of Friday, and the S&P is well below that. So if we look over here, we see that the S&P 500 closed about down 0.57. It is below the EMA 8, but it stayed above this purple resistance line, which I did not draw in the morning. So that's this purple line right here. The purple line is this blue line right here, the previous support or resistance. And then we did draw this EMA 20. So we didn't get way down here. We didn't think that we would get down here. We thought there might be a level in between, and that level in between ended up being the previous support and resistance right here. So you can see we traded down to it a couple of times, 3 times, and then we moved back up above it. At the end of the day, we got this upward surge in all three, the Dow Jones, the SPY, and the QQQ. QQQ had a clear downward bias. It went down and just has a downward slope rather than sideways. So what we're seeing here is a divergence in QQQ, the Dow Jones, and the S&P 500. And the S&P, as we would expect, is somewhere in between the two. And the Dow Jones is well outperforming the QQQ. What that tells me is very likely there's a sector rotation happening. If I look at the S&P 500, it's down below the EMA 8, but held at this support right here. We're not yet at the point where we're at the EMA 20. We could get there in the next couple of days. The Dow Jones never broke, well, I guess it sort of broke the EMA 8, but it stayed well above that. So definitely Dow Jones is strongest, and then we look at the QQQ, it already came down and touched the EMA 20. So QQQ is by far the weakest. This could be it for the QQQ. This could be the pullback and then moves upwards. If we are taking the perspective of the trend, then we should still be bullish the QQQ. Even though there's the possibility of a pullback or a correction, we should still be overall bullish on the QQQ. So here, this is a place where we need to take a lot of caution with the tech stocks and the consumer discretionary stocks. So we would still overall want to be long these sectors, but we would be hedging very carefully if we had any longs in this sector. It looks like because the QQQ is so much weaker than Dow Jones. Dow Jones ended actually a tiny bit higher, 0.06%. So this morning we were saying how it's very unlikely for any of the indices to actually be green today, to actually be above break even because of how much down they all opened. But the Dow Jones managed to do it, albeit just barely. Mostly, 0.06 is basically 0%. But technically it did. It did break above the previous close, and that is a lot of relative strength to the QQQ. So we want to see which specific sectors money got switched into. And what we're probably going to find, we already know because it's the Dow Jones, but also if we're running away from the QQQ, we're running away from speculative stocks, it's probably going to be defensive sectors. So that's things like XLP, consumer staples, sort of XLU, but that would be more interest rate related. And then XLV, healthcare. So I'm really interested to see how healthcare and staples did. So we'll go over here, we'll take a look at our sectors. And we'll just see for today only. So yeah, VNU, VUP, top three right there. So, and by quite a bit, energies also did very well. So VUPE, and to a certain extent, real estate did very well also. Financials are closer to break even, and everything else is down. And SMH, and tech were the ones that are down the most. So that's basically exactly what we were expecting. The money came out of the tech sectors pretty harshly, and then went into more defensive sectors like healthcare, utilities, and staples. So I would want to see the chart of these, because what we were seeing before was that the momentum levels of these three sectors was really, really low. And the momentum levels of XLK, XLY was really, really high. So we want to see how much that corrected today and whether or not there's more room for even more movement. So we're going to do that by going over here and taking a look at not our market momentum, but our market performance. And I want to see healthcare. Well, healthcare, the momentum is really high. I'm actually very surprised by that. Utilities, very high also. And staples, quite high. So that's really interesting to note. So, but there's this bigger gap between the MA200 and the MA50 right here in consumer staples. So either the 200-day has to come and catch up with the 50-day, or the 50-day has to go back down near the 200-day. We'll take a look at the charts to see which one is more likely. But if we looked at the utilities, those are about normal. 20% difference between a 50 and a 200-day is normal, so maybe a tiny bit above. So we got 23% here. And then we want to look at where is the other one? Healthcare. 98.69. So that's about 30 points. So there's a little bit of separation over here at the healthcare as well. Let's take a look at those XLV healthcare. Okay, XLV has been on this upward trend and it's shot up parabolically. You can see the last time we did that, we came back down to the EMA 8 and then some, actually all the way to the EMA 20. So this might be a little too much too fast. So it's possible we are up here at the +3 Keltner channel again, just like the last time we went parabolic. It's possible that we pull back down at least to the EMA 8 again. So XLV looks a little overheated. If we have any healthcare stocks that benefited from today, we're probably going to look to exit those tomorrow morning. Let's look at XLP. XLP is interesting because it does have that parabolic move just like we did earlier, but we ran up and through the MA200. So the previous one hit the +3 Keltner channel, came back down to the +1 Keltner channel, actually eventually to almost the -1 Keltner channel. And now we're back up, but here we're still at the +2 Keltner channel. So we are not quite overdone on XLP yet. So it looks like there's a little bit of room to go in XLP. And in that case, maybe this number will creep higher towards this number. Realistically, they might move towards each other. It's looking like, at least for this week, this MA200 number might move higher more than the MA50 moves down. The other thing that we want to keep in mind, now that I'm reminded of it, I want to say it even though it doesn't quite fit into exactly what we were just talking about, is that this is a shortened week. So yesterday was a holiday, so we have a fragmented week. That means traders slowly come back. So not all the volume came back today. We expect all the volume to be back maybe Thursday or Friday. So let's take a quick look at the SPY and see what the average volume was right there. And we can see that we are basically right at the average. So we're slowly coming back. We expect the next couple of days maybe to go above that 60-day average. I'm pretty sure it's a 60-day average. I'll have to figure out later. I'm not seeing it. Oh, 50-day average. So we'll expect more volume to continue to come in over the next couple of days in the markets. And then the other one that we looked at healthcare, we looked at staples, so XLU. Utilities brushing up against that MA200 didn't quite make it over, but in terms of the Keltner channels, it's only at the +1. So it is possible for there to be more room in the utilities to go upwards, but that MA200 may be difficult to overcome. unless we are helped by the bonds. So bonds continue to move down. If we move down towards the EMA 20 right here, then we could see upward movement in the utilities above the MA 200. Right now, I would say the best opportunity is looking like it's probably XLP. If we get an open and a low above the MA 200 tomorrow, that's going to be a really positive sign. And then if it happens again on Thursday, that's going to be an even better sign. So in terms of bullish opportunities, I'd be looking in XLP. And then let's take a look over the past week what sectors led. It's still VUP over the past week. I didn't even realize that. So these sectors, looks like we've been rotating into them very quietly over the past week. How about 2 weeks? VP, not quite you. So healthcare and staples have definitely been getting very quiet attention. It's kind of stealth mode because it got overshadowed by all of the movement in the QQQ over the last couple of weeks. So that's really interesting. So definitely looking like those sectors are gaining strength. And with XLV, it's just difficult because it's so high. I'd be waiting for a pullback in the healthcare stocks before going back into them. And so right now it's looking like XLP is our best opportunities for longs right now. And the Dow Jones, again, it's no sign of weakness yet. It's just flattening out. It's flattening out. It doesn't look like we're pulling back quite yet. So we are still near that +3 Keltner channel. So the longer it goes sideways, the more it'll bump into those lower and lower Keltner channels. So it could just go sideways while the QQQ pulls back. But again, we started out by saying that this could be the pullback for the QQQ because it did come and touch that EMA 20. So you can see that here we went up and then we just basically chopped sideways, went down a tiny bit to hit that EMA 20. Then we went up, we went sideways, and we moved down back to the EMA 20. This could bounce from here, in which case we were talking about this morning how we could go higher, but maybe not a huge amount higher. We really want to see a stronger pullback or a correction before we expect really strong bullishness in these markets. The other thing is IWM. Let's see what happened there. Okay, so IWM down 0.59%. So until we start seeing the Russells lead, we're not going to expect a really strong market. It's like super bullishness in the market. We'll just see continuations or mild continuations of trends. All right, so for now, we're going to focus on, was it XLP? XLP and maybe XLU. Okay. XLU would be a lot more interest rate sensitive. So we'll be looking for opportunities into those two sectors. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for today. Maybe tomorrow we'll start looking at some trade examples. We'll go back into option strat and see how we might take a look at high probability opportunities and choose options for those. Okay, so have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow in the pre-market session.